Today, I want to talk to you about sex in Ukraine and how you are paying for it. All right, so let's get started. Okay, now this story might seem a little unbelievable, but it looks like it's true. There are apparently an awful lot of soldiers in need of sex workers to help them recover from the trauma and the injuries of this war that's going on between Ukraine and Russia. But let's start by acknowledging that there are probably far more casualties than the mainstream media is telling us about. This is a report from an independent intelligence source where they estimate that there are 400,000 killed and 2 million wounded and disabled. This is a satellite image of one of the brand new cemeteries that they've created, and there are an estimated 123,000 fresh graves. Okay, that is a staggering and a very sad statistic, and we should all acknowledge that. Okay, so let's take a look at a report out of the BBC. Ukraine War, Sex Lives in Focus for Ukraine's Injured Veterans. At a modern office in central Kyiv, a 26-year-old Ukrainian veteran is proudly playing a video on his phone that shows him passionately kissing a young woman in a kitchen. It is an advert for Resex, a charity that tries to help former soldiers with their sex lives after suffering physical and mental trauma. In March last year, invading Russian forces launched a brutal siege of the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol, pounding much of it to ruins. Now, I'm not going to try to pronounce this man's name. I'm just going to call him Lib. Lib, then a Marine, was one of the city's defenders. A Russian blast knocked him from the third floor of a building to the ground. He was then crushed under rubble. Okay, so this story features a Ukrainian soldier named Lib, and it talks about the services that he got to help him recover, sexual services. And here's a picture of Lib. The BBC first spoke to Lib just weeks after his release, and later spoke to him during his rehab. It was while Lib worked on his recovery that Resex approached him. After my pelvis injury, I had problems that took some time to heal, and the issue of sex wasn't talked about much. So I wouldn't want that to happen to other people like me. That was a motivation to take part in the project. Here we go. Ivana Kostina is one of the founders of Veterans Hub, the group that runs the Resex project. She said they first had the idea for the project back in 2018 after reading about the issues for U.S. soldiers. Now, as far as I know, U.S. soldiers don't get this kind of service. And listen to her quote. There's sex in the hospital, sex at home, sex before procedures, sex after. There's a lot of good sex going on. Okay, so these prostitutes are providing all sorts of sexual services before, during, and after surgeries, and during the recovery process. All right, so let's continue on. After securing funding with the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, they spoke to Ukrainian soldiers and experts to ensure they were tailoring their help specifically to the men and women who need it. They faced some confusion from the public and veterans when they first asked for responses to questions online. People are dying. You're thinking about sex? And apparently this program is starting to be accepted as a really good idea amongst the general public. The charity, so this is a charity, remember? The charity has printed some 6,000 booklets and sent them out to medical centers, veterans, and their families all around Ukraine and made them available online. Resex has also launched a social media campaign with videos, graphics, and a helpline. And here's a nice little quote from Lib. Every partner I had was important to me in gaining my confidence back. I'm very grateful for that. After I came back from captivity and the hospital, I had a girlfriend, and then another when I was doing the project questionnaire. And now I have a partner, he says. I might have missed one. I mean, he had so many, he can't remember them all. But he said that he was thankful for every person he had dated in the past year. Okay, so listen, who's paying for this? Now, this is a Ukrainian government effort. And of course, who is funding the Ukrainian government? The United States of America, the taxpayers. You are paying for this program. So now, not only are we sending them money to pay for their war efforts, we're also paying for their pension system. Did you know that? We are picking up their tab for the entire pension system of the Ukrainian people. And now we're funding sex workers to help veterans recover. Well, Ukrainian veterans. As far as I know, our veterans are not getting access to this kind of a program. And that's another thing. These veterans probably have lost a lot of limbs and have a lot of PTSD. They're probably going to be on the government dime for the rest of their lives. And who's going to pay for them? I'm sure, again, it's going to be the American taxpayer. Now, listen, I'm all for taking care of soldiers. Don't get me wrong. I actually would much prefer that this war wasn't going on at all, so we could avoid all of these deaths and all of these terrible injuries. But while we are paying for these Ukrainian soldiers to get laid, we have millions of people in our own country who are homeless. And the people of Maui are suffering. And the best we can do for them so far is a $700 check. Last week, the Biden administration just announced they're going to send another $24 billion to Ukraine. Meanwhile, homelessness in America is out of control, and the poor people in Maui are given a $700 check. Okay, so on the other hand, you do have to kind of, hand it to good old Ivona. She shows true entrepreneurial spirit. As a sex worker, she saw an opportunity. She was actually able to get a contract with the government to provide sex. I mean, part of me just has to admire that kind of creativity. Anyway, so in the comments below, let me know what you think about this. Do you think this is a noble effort? Do you think these kind of services should be provided to our men in uniform? And do you think that it's okay for your tax dollars to be paying for all of this? That's it for today. Ed Anderson, live from Minnesota, signing out.
Copy that.